welcome to update of week 3 of the Singing Schools Rugby League. It's been a fantastic weekend and we've seen some very close matches and we've also seen some not so close matches, but then that'll explain why some teams are to look forward to and some teams not so much. Here with Saabir in his posh officers to talk about this third week of rugby action, and the game that really took all of our hearts and minds was the game between Isipatana and St. Joseph's. Isipatana staying unbeaten, winning that match in a tough physical affair. It was just an outstanding game of rugby for anyone who watched it. 23 points to 17 was how it ended up. St. Joseph's trying to come back into the game, but Isipatana showing their champion class and actually just managing to pip out the challenges that really were important. Those were the hard parts of the game, the moments of the game that Isipatana needed to win. They won, and they won it comprehensively. So nobody can say that Isipatana didn't deserve that victory. It was an outstanding effort on their part, despite the fact that they left about 20 points on the park. We'll talk about that later with Saabir. They left about 20 points on the scoreboard, unfortunately for them. But nevertheless, they managed to win this one by just a wafer thin 6 points. But St. Joseph's right in it until the final whistle, because it was that 7-point margin that they were trying to stay within. But it was an amazing match, definitely dominated by Omalka Gunaratna, who scored in the first 5 minutes. And after that, he scored another try also later in the second half. And apart from his attacking play, it was mainly his defensive turnovers off Tariq Salih. When Salih was trying to gain some yards for his team, St. Joseph's, he managed to do the needful by slotting into the blindside flanker's position, making the tackle and forcing the turnover. He did that on 2 really crucial occasions, and that shows that Omalka Gunaratna, Saabir, I think apart from just his attacking play last year, he has come a long way in being a defensive player this time as well. So he has really improved maybe 50% as a player since last week. It may not be obvious to those who are watching and not seeing how much he is doing running with the ball, but in terms of actually becoming a better rugby player, I think that has happened already this season. So a comprehensive victory in the end for St. Joseph's, for Isipatana rather, 23 points to 17. It was a fantastic game of rugby, and I think both teams can hold their heads high walking off the ground. It was played in the right spirit, despite the aggression, despite all the yellow cards and the blood that was spilled. I think both teams played it in really good spirit, and hats off to them for doing so. Then we had Trinity taking on St. Thomas's as well, which was an interesting game in the first half. Trinity went ahead, but St. Thomas's not as bad as the scoreboard suggests. 40 points to 15 is how that match finished, but St. Thomas's had a lion's share of possession. They had a lion's share of territory as well, but just some electrifying moments in the game which were dominated by Trinity. And guys like Saranga Gunatilaka, guys like Sachinta Disanayak, and also Petya Goda on the wing, the outside backs was where the gulf was really evident, and that's where that 40 points to 15 margin was made. But in terms of the forwards and maybe the front 10, St. Thomas's matched up to Trinity College, but there were some just X-factor players, as I would call them, in the Trinity backline, and they were the ones that made the difference. They're the ones that made the gulf look so huge on the scoreboard, although on the field it was not that obvious. So St. Thomas's will take heart from that, and Trinity College will have sounded a warning to all their other rivals as well. We had some other games also up in Kandy, and we had Science taking on St. Anthony's College, and that was 36 points to 27 in favor of Science College, and Science showing that they too have some really good players. Karuna Tilaka is one guy to look out for in the number 8 jersey for Science College, Saabir, and then we have Lishan and also Dylan Silva on the wing. I think he has been fantastic all season, and he's the guy who really creates trouble for the opposition. So even Science College, just like Trinity, have a solid pack, and they also have guys that can really break games, and that's where this Science College team is going to be dangerous in the knockout tournaments as well. And then we had Royal College taking on the Rajans, and Royal winning that one up in Kandy by 17 points to 5. Maybe they weren't too happy about the margin of victory, but I think the Dharmaraja team is a little bit underrated, and Royal College playing their 10-man style that they have been adapting to this season showed that they managed to get the points on the board and eke out a win. And that's where it's important for sides to show that even if they're not playing their best rugby, they can eke out wins. So 17 points to 5 was how that one finished, and that was those were the first 4 games of the weekend. We had a couple more which you had more of an angle on, Saabir. We had Kings versus Kingswood College versus CWW Kannangara, and Wesley College versus St. Peter's.
Yes, Shanaka, especially Kannangara, between Kannangara and Kingswood. I feel really sorry for Kannangara players. around 7 to 8 players have been injured who are senior players, especially their playmaker Lahirul Lakshan, who has broken his arm and he's out for the rest of the season, which is pathetic. And looking at Lakshan played last year in the other segment, I thought he would have asked to join another school, top division school, but he's not. But unfortunately, his rugby school's era is over. So on the other hand, talking about the Kingswood, they have some luxury of kickers in their team, Shanaka, especially Reza Rafai in the skipper. He used to take the conversion and he used to take the long distance kick inside the 22 meters. With big territorial kicks, and they have luxury of kicking Faris Ali, who's the main number 10. I have not seen many number 10 kicks like Isuru Kongawata for the territorial kicks, but this guy also makes some great running yards. They just undone the Kannangara line. Also, it was like 21 points to nil with the 10 minutes of play, and they could have scored more tries. The ball position with Kingswood. And this guy, Chaturas Seneviratne, he made a point that he comes from Nalaka Virakkodi's family, made a drop goal where it's not necessary at the match, and he made a 35-meter drop goal, and just he made a point, I come from Virakkodi family, which is quite interesting. But if they thrown the ball out, they could have scored one more try and a conversion. So that went like that. Kingswood trash CWW Kannangara. And on the other hand, we have St. Peter's College versus Wesley College, and in this game, I was in a different angle. We used to normally watch from the sideways the match, but I was in the HSBC pavilion at the CRNFC grounds, and you see the tactical moves from those lines. Kings, especially St. Peter's, they came with a running rugby plan. They never wanted to kick the ball. Wesley, on the other hand, were trying to play equally as their opponent, which is not right, which didn't go well. So we saw the interesting battle between St. Peter's and Wesley College. St. Peter's came with a clear game plan. They didn't want to kick the ball at all. Maybe like All Blacks, they want a running rugby. Even from their own half, 5-meter line, they just want to run because Nishon Pereira, who started as flanker, he immediately joins to the line to support Kevin Dixon and the playmaker Diat Fernando, who's the fastest on the field. So what happened was, Wesley, on the other hand, they were trying to play the same according to the St. Peter's lead. Instead of coming to the own 50-meter, own half and creating more options or more chance. What St. Peter's and Wesley didn't do is Sandesh, both the number 10s, Dore from Wesley, Sandesh from St. Peter's, I didn't see anyone kicking territorial and coming to the opposite half. Neither did Dore. They didn't want to because they just played the running game. What happened was they both attacked in the own half and made a mess of a knock-ons this area. So many knock-ons, and the scrum, it took so many times. Rishad Kadar, in fact it was Dingapir, he was stopped the scrum because it was not nice, steady and square at the first time. It took twice or maybe thrice to get a right scrum on this instance. So in that case, if you think about Isuru Kongawata from Isipatana, from this position, he knows where to kick because the Punchi Heva or Dilan Gallage at the wing, they know what Kongawata will do when he gets the ball. He sees the place nicely, he go to the space nicely and make a lovely drubber kick or a chip kick or territorial huge kick. This is the difference between Wesley and St. Peter's. Peter's, they don't have to kick at all because they are so good in the running. I was lucky enough to stay in the HSBC pavilion and watch this analysis because usually we watch from the center end and we can't see this much of movement on the field. So this is what happened. But on the other hand, for the Wesley captain Omar Kutubuddin, he also did the same thing. He was running, but his supporters didn't have luxury of Nishon or Dixon or Sandesh or even Diat Fernandez to support because his offload found nowhere. That's what happened for the St. Peter's and the Wesley match. So one more thing we noticed in the Wesley St. Peter's match, this is the Wesley winger with the ball. Now if it's Anuruddha the Vilwada player type, he will use the upper body and he will try to engage into the gap and try to create a ruck on this instance, this side, taking Diat Fernando and Nishon Pereira into him. This winger didn't happen. If it's Sandun Herat like a player, he will try to come this way and use this 5-meter mark with his pace. If it's Lavanga Pereira like a player, who are all three Tuskers wingers, what Lavanga does is chip and chase. No one is at the back because it's a one-on-one situation. Instead, the Wesley winger, he was trying to pass for the support for the man in the pocket and knock on cause there and they lost position. So these are the simple mistakes as the winger they have to use and watch videos. Maybe Henry Fredens would be looking at this and Amal also will be looking at this. And but they have a good chance against Kannangara next week. If they can score 50 points, that will give Wesley Heights a mental boost.
Saabir showing there exactly what Ben McDougall tried to do with St. Peter's, play aggressive rugby against a young side. And unfortunately, where Wesley came unstuck, Saabir, was that they allowed St. Peter's to dictate the pace of the game. They got caught up playing the same game that their more experienced opponents were trying to play. And I think that was the difference also in the Isipathana game, where they completely played to their own strengths. They knew what the strengths of the opposition were, and they played to their own strengths and didn't get embroiled in that physical battle as much as they could have done if they were an inexperienced side. So that's where it comes to play, where everything really doesn't work out for you sometimes if your players on the field don't react the way you've been doing in training, and they react only to what is happening on the field. So that's one aspect that these young Wesley players need to keep in mind.
So in the uprights, we were talking about Isipathana's kicking failures. You were watching that game again. Once again, the failures. They missed around 8 points with the kicking.
Actually, they missed about 4 conversions, Saabir, and they missed about another 4 penalties as well. So you take those 12 points and the 8 points, that's about 20 points that they left on the park. And a team that's scoring so many triumphs, a team that has so many good attacking options, it's a crime that they don't have the place kicker to finish this one off. Because if they managed to get those kicks in, it wouldn't have been 23-17, it might have been 33-17, and that would have been a far more comprehensive effort. But bringing Isru Kongahawatta back, I thought was great for them. He's recovered from injury. Unfortunately, got concussed in this game also. But despite him being in the side, they can't find a guy to kick it through the post, and that's a big problem for Isipathana. Well, it's not a problem because they're still unbeaten, but it's something that will really ice the cake.
And also the other kicker in the uprights, Reza Rafaidin, he made 6 conversion out of 9 kicks. He's so good with the angle kick. Those 41 meters from the left to right. He's so good. He just nailed all those 3 kicks from that angle. And the other guy to look about is Saranga Gunathilaka. He have made 3 conversion and 3 penalties. So then again, he scored another 2 tries in that game, if I'm not wrong. In the uprights so far, the kicking goes really well for the Kandy schools, but not so well for the Colombo schools. In the next segment of playmakers, Kingswood Senesh Veerasinghe, he's just maybe 2 inches taller than me. He's just 5.5 and he's not that well. Maybe Kevin Mealama look like he's playing a number 8, and he was so mobile. He's huge advantage for Kingswood. He just picks the ball from the scrum and he runs like a 7th player with some sidestep. It was lovely to see. He is one of the main playmakers on that match against CWW Kanangara. He made the task easy for the forwards and as well as the 3/4. And the other playmakers in the St. Peter's game was Diat Fernando, because in the line 3/4 they have luxury of Kevin Dixon coming in. In fact, we thought Dixon was out for 2 more weeks, but he was back into the action. And Nishon Pereira from the flanker position, he's moving into 3/4 and joining combination, and he draws 1 or 2 defenders and offload to Diat Fernando. He was so fast, mind you. He made an 80-meter run between the 3/4 and between the fourth, which was sensational to watch. So he's one of the playmakers in this week, along with St. Joseph's and Isipathana Shanaka, who are your playmakers.
Well, I thought Romalka was obviously one who led from the front again. That first try that he scored, Saabir, in the first 5 minutes, I think that really set St. Joseph's back, because Joseph's came with a plan to try and tackle Romalka and not let him get yards. But when he scored that dominant try, and he really brushed off maybe about 4 or 5 defenders in scoring that try, that set the tone for the game. And that put St. Joseph's on the back foot, and they had to come back into this game after the first 40 minutes. So I would put Romalka Gunaratna up there as a playmaker. But also the other guy that I thought did really well was Isuru Kongahawatta. He was outstanding with the ball in hand. He's a left-footed kicker, and they'd come to, I think Nilufer Ibrahim is very underrated as a coach, and I think on match day he gets it right. He knows how to tweak a game plan to beat that opposition. So he knew St. Joseph's had some strong forwards, and he wanted to take the ball away from them, so he was kicking across the field, putting pressure on the back 3 of St. Joseph's. Punchiheva was chasing really well, Gallagher was chasing really well also, and the midfield were also really putting a lot of pressure. So I thought Kongahawatta was also one of the playmakers in that game. And for St. Joseph's, I thought there were their midfield also did fairly well because Viraj Pereira also in the flank. I thought their third row was exceptional with Tariq Saleh leading from the front. But then they had two guys, Chetia and Romesh Priyankara, who also played very good games in defence in the St. Joseph side. But unfortunately for them, they don't really have a fly half, and that's something that's really holding them back. Dulit Fernando is injured and he's on the bench, and watching these games, unfortunately, they need him out there in the middle, and they don't really have a playmaker at the number 10 role. So that's the unfortunate thing for St. Joseph's. They don't have a guy that can really turn things on and make it happen. Kurumbala Pitia is the guy they were looking to do that at fullback, but unfortunately he didn't have the best game either. So I think Isuru Kongahawatta was probably the guy who controlled that game best for his team.
And up next in the standouts player of the week, which we award for the highest point scorer in this week, week 3, it was the Kingswood skipper Reza Rafaidin, who scored 4 tries and 6 conversions. So it's a total of 32 points. 4 tries and 6 conversions, a total of 32 points. So Reza Rafaidin remains our standout player of the week 3. And in the sin bin sector, this week around, we saw between the St. Joseph's and Isipatana, Punchiheva, he was awarded a yellow card, but he was not looking at the ball. Maybe he's looking at only the player. He made 2 high tackles when the player is on the edge. What do you have to say about that?
Well, in Punchiheva's defense, I don't think there was any malice in it. Saabir, it didn't look like he was trying to take the player out and do him an injury. It was just that he was doing his job with such focus. And you look at him when he's playing on the wing, Punchiheva, he's got a real focus in his eyes. He looks like he's really, his eyes on only on the job. And I think he was a little bit reckless, but there was no malice. So I think the referee got it right by giving the yellow card. He gave him 1 yellow card. He didn't give him one for the earlier one where I thought he tackled the player a little early, a little too early on in the piece. So it's a good example where players can let their enthusiasm sometimes just get the better of them and do a disservice for their team rather than just being disciplined, holding it back and doing a really good service for the team. So I think that was part of the plan for Punchiheva to chase really hard, and that's why he was doing that. But I think he needs to just hold himself back a little bit. Maybe he's faster than he thinks he is.
So next up, top try scorer, point scorer. In the try-wise, Omalka Gunaratne leads with 7 tries, and followed by Saranga Gunatilka, who has scored 6 tries. And Chatura Dilshan, Supun Wadnakolusivria and Reza Rafaidin scored 5 each. And in the points, last year also the highest point scorer was a Trinity, it was Sarinder Ratwate, who scored 121 points last year. So far, Saranga Gunatilka, another Trinity, leads with 55 points, and Reza Rafaidin 43 points, Omalka Gunaratna, Chatura Dilshan, Shamil Kokuram Balapitia 34, 35, 34 and 31 each. So that is the points table, top prize scorers and top point scorers at the end of the week 3. And also we got the points table, Shanaka, with
looking at the points table, only 3 unbeaten teams so far. We had 4 going into this weekend, but St. Joseph's losing that tag, unfortunately for them, and Isipatana staying well out in front of segment 1A, having won their 3 games and 16.5 points that they have gathered. Kingswood with that big win over CWW Kannangara actually leapfrog St. Joseph's, and they come into second position on the number of tries that they have scored. So 12.5 points they've got to St. Joseph's 12 points, and St. Peter's coming up next with their good win over Wesley. They've won 2 games so far this season, and they'll be really happy with the return of Kevin Dixon. Wesley and CWW Kannangara yet to win a game this season. And looking at segment 1B, we have Trinity College, who completely dominated that game against St. Thomas's, managing to win that one by 40 points to 15. So showing that they've got the class, and like you said, Saranga Gunitala scoring tries plus kicking points. So that's it's a good guy to have in their side. They've moved him to the wing from fullback. So 16.5 points for them as well, which is the same as Isipatana. Royal also have won their 3 games that they played so far. They are 1.5 point behind. So 16 points for them from their wins. And then we have Science College, who may be the surprise package of that group so far. They've got 2 wins and 1 loss to Royal College, and St. Thomas's, Dharmaraja, and St. Anthony's. Only St. Thomas's have won a game out of those 3, and that was the game against against Dharmaraja that they actually managed to win. So they have 7.5 points. So at the moment, 2 teams on 16.5 points at Isipatana and Trinity College. Then you have Royal in third with 16 points, and then you have Kingswood and Science and St. Joseph's all in the 12.5 point region. So we're getting a nice little couple of groups gathering here, Saabir, and looking forward to the next week's games. Actually, we have, this is out of the weekend, so no games this weekend, but we have some crackers coming up. 24th of April, we have St. Peter's College playing Isipatana College. We have Joseph's playing Kingswood, which will be a very important game as well, given that those 2 teams are at number 2 and 3 in segment 1A. CWW Kannakara plays Wesley. That will be a battle for the wooden spoon, actually, in that segment 1A category. So both those teams will be desperate for a win, and it should be an important game for both those sides there as well. Science College, once again, Trinity travelling down to Colombo might be a surprise package. It's not a foregone conclusion, this game, and Trinity will do themselves a disservice if they take this game lightly, because I think just like Trinity have some X factors, Science College also do have some X factor players. St. Thomas's versus Royal, the Royal Thomian coming up, and that's always a game that you can rely on for some entertainment. And St. Anthony's will play Dharmaraja in a battle of Kandy, which should be an important thing for Candian supremacy as well. I think Trinity College are by far and away the better side in the Candian kingdom so far, but St. Anthony's and Dharmaraja will also be vying for those honours at second place. That's a wrap up of week 3 of the Singer Rugby Schools season 2015. So looking forward to some entertaining games next week, with Royal taking on St. Thomas's, St. Peter's taking on Isipatana, St. Joseph's taking on Kingswood, and Trinity taking on Science. Those will be some really close games, so make sure you keep it locked to thepapare.com for all your action, live and exclusive.